Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Sin and Tonic. Today's story is that of Jane Wilson. Today we are going to Kirk Andrews on Eden. What a name. Let's go. Sin and Tonic! Hello, I hope you've all had a wonderful Easter. I have got myself a pina colada. I have eaten lots of chocolate. I have had hot cross bun, a cream tea, all sorts. And I'm going to finish off the glorious Easter weekend with a pina colada. Why not? It's one of those cans you can buy, like a cocktail in a can. Amazing. What has the world come to? But it's really, really yum. If you like pina colada. Trouble is, they're just too good. Workmen are still here, building something, working on something in a garden yonder. So if you hear that, I apologise. I will pause for they're having a good old chat. Giggle, don't know if you could hear that. They're having a laugh. That's nice, we don't mind that. Anyway, without further ado, let's get on with the story. So like I said, Kirk Andrews on Eden. What a name. I like a good name. 2007. At the time of our story, Jane is 53 years old. She is married to Rob Wilson. He is 40 years old. And they were married in the year 2000, so they've been married for 7 years. This was Jane's second marriage, and it was Rob's first. They were busy people. They were busy people, because Jane was a part-time postie, and she was very friendly, always liked to have a little chat with people, bubbly personality. Then there was her husband, Rob. He had a well-paid job as a manager for somebody called Fred Story, who was a wealthy businessman. So Rob has that job, but Rob has that job. And alongside that, he also runs a small farm. So, like in his spare time, it's, people like to be busy. Some people do. I'm a much slower pace. I'm a bit of a sloth. Anyhow, it takes everyone to do these things. So they've both basically got 2 jobs. Jane, part-time postie, but she looks after the horses on the farm, and that's like her passion. That's what she loves doing. So she's in charge of the horses and she loves it. Busy. The couple were happily married and life was just poodling along. And then everything was about to just come crashing down. Rob requested a leave of absence from his job as a manager with Fred's Story, saying that he had sadly been diagnosed with cancer. This was lung cancer, and he said that he was going to need treatment and radiotherapy, so he needed time off of work. He broke the news to Jane, who was devastated, and then he began his treatment. At this time, it would seem like Rob's cancer diagnosis had given him a new outlook on life, and while he was having his treatment, what he decided to do was plan for his life, his retirement and his life after cancer. Something to focus on, maybe. I can understand that. So while he was having cancer treatment, he was also going to France quite frequently to look at properties. He had spoken to Jane about this, and they had decided, very itchy eyebrow there. That was incredible. Ooh. They had decided that they were going to sell up and move to France and run a small farm over there. They were both very passionate about the farming, and Jane especially with the horses. So this sounded perfect for them. So off he goes to France every now and then to look for property. Jane never went on any of these trips. Some things began to be amiss. I mean, I actually think that is a bit amiss. I can understand maybe once or twice one of you going out, like not. He had a leave of absence, so he could go to France more often, and Jane was still working and someone had to look after the farm and stuff like that. I get it. But at least one of those trips, like, be excited to go out together. Surely she can have a holiday, go out there, look at some stuff, but she never went on any of the trips, and I found that a bit, I'd be gutted about that if Paul was, and he certainly wouldn't be able to pick a house for me to live in. I'd have to go and sign it off and just, and also, don't you want to be excited together? I don't get that. Unless, these were all these 7 trips and she went on none. I just find that a bit. Also, after 7 trips, really haven't found anywhere. My lord. it was not only the trips that Jane was not a part of, it was also the treatment that he was having. And yes, I can see it from his side as well. He said that he didn't want her to see him having his treatment. He wanted to do it on his own. He didn't want her to go along. Okay. But she never ever once went to a single appointment, even a doctor's appointment, nothing at all. He said no. Everyone is different, so I'm not going to be judgy about that. But he also never lost his hair. Never lost a single strand. And finally, his boss, Fred Story, he sounds like it was quite a, like a really amicable relationship, and he was quite invested in his employees, and he went to visit on numerous occasions. Each time he would chat with Rob, ask how he was. He wanted to stay in the loop. How was he feeling? He was being quite attentive, but he also needed some paperwork from Rob, because to pay for Rob's absence, they were going to, put his sickness through in the insurance company, and that would something like that, and that would pay for him to be off of work, basically. So they needed his diagnosis, like a letter of diagnosis, to give to their insurance company. But he never ever produced it. Red flag. And then on the 1st of December in 2007, Rob made an incredibly distressed phone call to 999. I don't know why, but when cases are in December, I think it's because I love Christmas so very much, and it's I like the whole of December. It's such a festive month. There's quite a lot of family birthdays in that month as well, and it's just, we do lots of things in December, like, Christmassy, throughout the whole month, and I love it. I love the whole thing, and it's very just my favourite month of the year. So when somebody loses their life in December, I'm like, I don't know, it just adds a layer of really to the whole thing. I find it even more depressing, because it's December. It's meant to be a really happy month. I know some people hate December, but it's Christmassy. Can we not just be good people at Christmas time? Rob was distraught on this phone call, and it comes to light that he's run over Jane with his tractor. He's run her over by accident. He's run her over. So he's almost incoherent. Incoherent? Exactly. He's almost incoherent in some of the phone call. But it comes to light that there's been this terrible accident. He says that a cow must have knocked her over, and, just this awful kerfuffle has happened. At first I'm thinking, how do you accidentally, was he reversing, what? But no. So he had a big bale of hay on the front of I'll share a picture. But, it restricted his view. The paramedics arrived, and Rob was still just very, very distressed. And then it became apparent as to why. It was incredibly clear that Jane could not be saved, because the tractor, this huge heavy tractor, had run over her head. So her head had basically been completely squashed. That is just incredibly. Can you imagine seeing that? The shock and the trauma of that, the way that this had all happened, it had almost decapitated Jane. Understandably, Rob could barely talk. And even the officers, because police came as well, so officers and paramedics, even these trained professionals that have seen a lot, they were quite disturbed, and it's really traumatic for everybody involved. Rob managed to ring Jane's children, so she had 2 children from a previous marriage, Sharon and Lee. So he called them. They quickly arrived at the farm, and then Rob exhibited some strange behaviour yet again. So there's more things amiss. I don't know why my forehead is so itchy. I apologise. I feel like I'm just... Why? I was going to say gin will help, and then I was like, it's a pina colada. Well, a pina colada. Oh. Rob told Jane's children that he would be closing the farm for a number of weeks, and that he wanted to be completely left alone. Nobody, not even them, to come to the farm. And that's quite specific, isn't it? I'm going to close the farm, and I don't want anyone here. Again, it's borderline like, okay, he's just had this really traumatic thing happen. So it's just a bit odd. He did ask her children to come back the following day to collect Jane's belongings. What the actual? That's the weirdest thing by far, I think. All of the weirdness, and then that. Can you come back tomorrow? I want all her stuff gone. What? And then in the days that followed that, I think that if this happens ever, it should be a red flag, and whatever case is, whatever death has just occurred should be looked into very closely. Because in the weeks, I know that there's some, sorry, I'm not explaining myself, but it's like verbal diarrhea today. Right. In some religions, I believe, and I didn't research this, I should have done, but in some religions, I think there's a certain, the deceased body has to be buried or cremated like within a number of days. It's quite quick. But this was not the case here. This was not a religious thing. Rob requested that the funeral take place quickly. He wanted it all over and done with very quickly. I don't know. Was he using the card of like, this was such a traumatic event? But even then, I don't know. But I would imagine if something has been incredibly unexpected and very traumatic, I can't imagine that speed is the thing that you would be after here. Like, let's get this done quick. Why? I actually feel like it would be the opposite. You'd need a lot of time to process the loss of that person. In a case like this, when it's just very unexpected and in a traumatic way. But no, he pushed very hard to have her body released and to have the funeral quickly. Jane was cremated only a week after her death. That is incredibly quick. True to his word, Rob closed the farm. He closed the doors, he didn't allow anybody in, and he isolated himself. However, on the 23rd of December, Jane's children, Sharon and Lee, they decided that they were going to go to the farm. And I think this is another reason why I don't like it when cases are in December, because it really highlights that thing where that person was just living their life and it's been cut off and cut short because she'd bought Christmas presents. Jane had bought Christmas presents for her children. Rob had given those presents to her children the day that she died or the day after. Like, he gave them the gifts. Would you be thinking that? I don't know. Feels like he just wanted everything out of the house. Anything to do with Jane. All these presents that she'd bought, get them out, give them to you, get the clothes gone. Anyhow, people deal with death differently, I'm not judging. Jane's children knew that Jane would have bought her mum a present, so their nana. So they went to the house to collect this present so that they could give it. So emotional, isn't it? They could give that present to their nan on Christmas Day. When they arrived, Rob wasn't there. He wasn't at the house. So they let themselves in and they just assumed and guessed that the present would be in their bedroom, like in Jane's bedroom, the bedroom that she shared with Rob. They found their nan's Christmas present that Jane never got to give. And they also found much more. Because in the bedroom, around the bedroom, were... That didn't sound good. Are you okay? Do I need to ring an ambulance? Have you severed a limb? I think they're okay. There's no more noise. Oh, I mean, that probably isn't okay. Someone helping him? I can hear noise. What was I saying? It's all going on, isn't it? It's all going on in the village. Yeah. How could I forget? Because this is where it gets spicy. They found a number of cards and letters from a woman named Kathy. Who's Kathy? Who were? Now, these cards were lovey-dovey. Valentine's Day cards, love letters, and it was very, very clear from these letters addressed to Rob that Kathy and Rob had been having an affair. Jane had only died on the 1st of December, This is the 23rd of December, and these cards dated back throughout the year. Sharon and Lee, they gathered up the cards and the letters and they scanned them. So they scanned, like there was a scanner in the house. They scanned each letter and each card, and then they placed them back where they had found them, took Nan's present, and they left. And it set something off in their mind where they just thought, was this an accident? Was there more to it now? Later that day, now this is suspicious. What are you trying to hide, Rob? Well, we know. He called Sharon and asked her if they'd been to the house. Well, that's not unusual in itself, I suppose. And obviously the present was missing. Did he know that? Did he notice? But he was very keen to know what rooms they'd been in. Oh, I wonder why. So it just, the whole thing was a bit like, he knew the cat was out of the bag, really. If they've gone into that room, which she told the truth, she said, we went in and got Nan's present. She tried to keep her cool. Sharon and Lee contacted the police immediately. They were interviewed and they took the scanned letters card in, and then an investigation began. But it was all very hush-hush. They couldn't tell anybody, and, they really didn't want Rob to find out that he was being investigated. They talked to many people that knew Rob, and I think a clincher was probably when they spoke to Fred Story, his boss, and he then shared his, what would you say, suspicions that Rob didn't really actually have cancer. He said that he had been numerous times to speak to Rob, and that Rob had never given him the medical proof of his diagnosis. It's always an excuse. Throughout the investigation, the police found that Rob had been lying about his cancer, and that he didn't have cancer at all. That's a low blow, man. So who is Kathy? Yep, we will get there. 14 months before Jane's death, Rob was out in Spain on a stag do. He went to a bar in Spain and he met Kathy. He told Kathy that his wife had died. When the holiday was over, Kathy and Rob stayed in contact. Now, she really liked Rob. She thought he was quite vulnerable and open, and he'd lost his wife. She really felt for him. He'd just basically done a massive number. He was just lying through his teeth. So they stayed in contact. So when he came back to the UK, Kathy and Rob were talking up to 5 times a day. All those trips to France to view property? No, not at all. He was going to Spain for little breaks with Kathy. 7 times in 2007. 7 times he went. Also, he must have made out to Kathy that he was a lot richer than he was, because he lavished her. He paid for a holiday to the Maldives, right? Expensive. And he bought her a £15,000 Mercedes. What the heck, man? I know that this happens, but it's like living a double life. But oh my God, the energy. I always think that these things, like the energy you have to have for that business. Like, what? And also, I would be terrified that I'd call her Jane, and then, because you always get caught out. Kathy, loving girlfriend now, basically, 7 times he's been out to Spain. They're in a relationship. They're talking 5 times a day, but she lives in Spain and he lives in the UK. Long distance relationship, mate. That's what that is. So she romantically surprises him and says, guess what, love? I've booked tickets. I'm coming over to see you. Bum, bum, bum. Really? Because now, what's he going to do? It's all a lie. I think the oaf actually told her, the farm that he actually did live at. So what are you going to do now? Well, it beggars belief, doesn't it, really? So he's got to lie. Kathy's on her way. She is going to come and visit him at the farm. So he tells her that his aunt has been, all these lies. His brain must just be a jumble. Like, what have I said to who? What? He's lying to everyone. Anyway, I don't know how people do that. So many lies. I mean, there's one thing having one little cheeky lie or a white lie, but all those lies. He says his aunt has been in a terrible accident and she's died, and this gets me. Really, of all the lies, that family, this is fine. Family are going to come to the farm, the family farm, right? I think that's how he painted the picture. But also that she was to be buried on the farm, and that he had to ready himself and be digging her grave. Right? Is he Dwight Schrute? What the hell, man? Anyway, the police found Kathy, and what had happened is that he'd basically postponed her to get his affairs in order, to get rid of his wife, to clear the farm of her belongings. What the hell, man? Of all the things that he could have done, that's what makes me so cross sometimes with these cases, because you're like, are you thick? You couldn't get caught, so you killed somebody. Do you know what I mean? Like, you couldn't think of another way to put out that fire? I mean, really? So he said to her, oh, don't come now. My aunt's died. I've got to dig a grave. So she agreed to go and visit Kathy. She agreed to go and visit family somewhere else in the UK. She was English, so she was in Spain. What do they call that? Like an expat working in a bar out there. She'd lived in France. I think she was, she is the type of person that, she spread her wings, and, she was not a homey bird, because she'd lived in France as well, I think, Spain. She was working out there in a bar, that sort of person. So travel, but she was from the UK originally. So she decided, they agreed that she would visit family first and then come to the farm. So that just buys him some time, doesn't it? That buys him some time. By the way, I can think of 100 things, right, other than what he did. But how about really bad timing that you've booked to come now? Tell you what, why don't we go and have a week? Like, how long are you coming for? Let's go and have a week in a hotel somewhere in, like, Cornwall. Let's go and book a caravan somewhere. Do you know what I mean? Do that. Just get her away from the farm. Just be like, make up, you're good at lying. Well, you're not, and you are, but you lie like it's your job. So why not do that? Lie. Can't stay at the farm, actually. So let's go somewhere else. You're already in debt, mate. Book a caravan. You've already told your wife and everyone that you're having cancer treatment. So, you'd be sick, be in hospital for a week. Do you know what I mean? All of those things. But no, this is what he chose to do. Jane was killed one day after Kathy was meant to come and visit. Kathy had no idea that he was married. She had no idea about any of it. And when the police found Kathy and they interviewed her, they told her they believed that he had killed his wife. And she was just, what a blow. Like, I feel sorry for Kathy because she didn't know any of this. And actually, her mere existence played a part in Jane's death. He was, not that it's her fault at all, it was his. But I think you'd just, what a mess. What a mess. 4 months after Jane's children came forward with their suspicions and the letters, Rob was arrested. When officers went to the farm, he was in bed with another woman. God only knows what lies he had told her. Rob told the police that Kathy was just a fling. He also said that he had not lied to Jane about any of it, and that Jane knew about Kathy. He said that Jane was fine, and that it was all open, all out on the table, and that she knew he was with Kathy, sleeping with Kathy, and that was all okay. Jane's family said that was not the case, and that would not be something that she would be okay with. He was then charged with Jane's murder. On the 4th of November 2008, his trial would begin. There was no physical evidence in this case. Kathy's body had been cremated like a week after she had died. So the prosecution had to prove that Rob had killed Jane without any physical evidence at all. A forensic expert had a look at the crime scene photos, and they noted that there was not, this is grim, I think, but they noted that there was not enough blood at the scene, suggesting that Jane was not actually killed by the tractor. She concluded that if Jane had died in the way that Rob was suggesting that she had, there would be a lot more blood. It would have, I hate saying splatter. I don't know why, but there would be a lot of it and it would have travelled and splattered in certain ways. And this was not what was happening in this case at all. The theory was that Rob had previously killed Jane, likely, well, almost certainly, by a blow to the head or multiple blows to the head. And that is why he had then driven over her head with his tractor to hide any evidence of that. Absolutely vile. The injury caused by the tractor running over her head, it crushed her skull, so it would have gotten rid of any evidence of trauma to her head. And he had cleared out all of her belongings and her clothes the day after she had died, and he was just getting ready for Kathy's visit. And I believe that this, what I'm about to say, is the clincher of the whole thing, because in the weeks leading up to Jane's death, murder, he increased her life insurance policy from 200,000 to 400,000. He increased it. So he finds out that Kathy's going to visit, and then he concocts this plan, not another plan, not a plan that gets Kathy away from the farm so that Jane can live the rest of her life, but this plan where he chooses to murder his wife and clear any evidence of her out of their home. The plan that he chose did also mean that he could pay off he was in a lot of debt because of these holidays to France, trips to Spain, car, romantic getaway, all of the gifts. So he was in debt. Rob Wilson was sentenced to 22 years in prison. And I am actually surprised. We've covered a lot of cases recently where the sentencing is absolutely diabolical. Like, really, like, it doesn't, I try and move on because it's given me a lot of stress. But, people have what? Oh, something happened on my phone. It scared me. But maybe I'm a bit, it's also really windy and rainy, so maybe I'm a bit jumpy. Anyway, so yeah, like, we've covered all these cases where people have actually taken someone's life. They have died. They've killed somebody, and they're like, oh, less than a handful of years for some reason or another. And in this case, there was no physical proof, and you have to prove beyond reasonable doubt that he did it. Now, I believe that he did. That's my personal opinion, because who falls over? Who gets knocked over? Oh, knocked over by a cow, and then just happens to be laying perfectly still in that moment, still enough for a frickin' tractor to run over your head. However, right? Also, yeah, no, right? Right, okay. So, first of all, what? No. Perfect, right, just across, really? Anyway, but there is a planet where, another one, not this one, I don't think, where, just by chance, a few weeks before she died, he upped her insurance policy just for some random reason. And there is a planet where she did get maybe knocked out by a cow. He kicked her in the head, and then she fell under the wheel of a tractor just ahead. So, but I don't know. I feel like, if I'm honest, in this case, the jurors used their common sense and put the pieces together, and even without a body, convicted him, and I think rightly so. But when we've looked at other cases where there's more evidence than this, and actually it's like, oh yeah, well, I did kill the person, but they get off, or they get light sentences because of. Also, how scary, because if it wasn't for Jane's kids, Sharon and Lee, if they hadn't have gone there to get that present, if they'd have just thought, no, it'll upset Nan too much, we won't, whatever, they would never found those cards from Kathy, and their suspicion would never have been raised. Possibly never been raised. So there is also a planet, not this one, thankfully, where he would have gotten away with murder. Crazy, isn't it? Interestingly, Rob had also told Kathy that he was going to leave his wife and that they were going to go and live in France. He liked that, didn't he? That little thought. Just he must live in some sort of fantasy world. Kathy met with Jane's children, which I think was brave, really, of her. And she said that they were incredibly lovely towards her, and she was kind of like vilified in the press, and known as the other woman, but she had no idea that she was that. She didn't know. He had lied to her, and she was in the dark about that as well. Just a piece of work. What do you think about that? Because I do think my gut and my logical brain just thinks, yep. I mean, I couldn't find if he gave a reason why he had increased her life insurance policy. Why does anyone? There must be legitimate reasons, because obviously you can do it. So there must be circumstances where it's like, oh, and you'd probably ring up and be like, oh, right, this sounds iffy, but I need to increase because, and you'd probably over explain it like really awkwardly, because you'd be like, I'm not going to like off my wife or my husband or whatever, but blah, blah, blah. Do you know what I mean? So there must be reasons. But yeah, did he, I wonder why. I don't think I couldn't find a reason that he gave, but that is all just too much, isn't it? If you look at that, common sense, impending visit from his secret girlfriend, and then he just panicked. But I say panicked, but it's kind of, he had a plan. He planned that out. It wasn't pure panic, was it? He had a thought process, and he increased the life insurance. He was going to make a packet out of that. So yeah, I definitely think he did it, and I think he's in the right place. Sorry, I shouldn't have things that I can twiddle with. Let me know what you think in the comments. I love a little chit chat about the case. God, it really is blowy out there. This has been delightful. I'm going to get a few more of them. It's like being in Spain. If you like pina colada. That is all I have for you on today's case. How are we? How was your Easter? Did you get loads of chocolate? I didn't think we would get... The kids get loads of chocolate. Loads. But they're old enough now to know what they've got and what they've got left. And what, when they were little, it was like, oh, it's all gone. I wonder why. But now they know. So you can't be pinching it. And yeah, I didn't think Paul and I would really get any chocolate, but my parents got us a M&S. M&S do these round chocolate biscuits, chocolate covered. If you're having a cup of tea, do you know what? They're not even a cup of tea biscuit. They're just a delight. They're almost just like, you don't need a cup of tea, but they are nice with a cup of tea, but you don't dunk them. That would ruin it. They've got a proper bite. They're a proper biscuit. I'm going to share a picture of them. And they have got a lot of chocolate around them. If you like a lot of chocolate on your biscuit, join our club. That's for my friend Isabel. But yeah, no, these are epic. They're the best chocolate biscuit, I think. Anyway, so I wasn't disappointed, but it's going to sound like I am. Like this huge box, and on the front, so M&S, one of those giant, and I was like, oh my god, it's a giant one. First of all, very excited. Second of all, I was like, the small biscuits nearly break your teeth. How the hell are we going to eat that? Like it was like that tall, like that big. I was like, that's never happening. Sorry, it's the chair. But no, it's not. It's basically, it's hollow, and it's chocolate with the biscuit, broken up bits of biscuit in the chocolate. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Don't know if M&S would be down for it, but they should definitely sponsor me, because I would talk about their food and their drink and their homewares and their clothes all day long. I freaking love it. I love that shop. And it reminds me of my nan and granddad. Do you think they'd sponsor a true crime YouTube? Don't know, but they should. Marks and Sparks. Thank you so much for joining me today for another true crime story and a glass or a tumbler or a mug or a jug or a hug of gin pina colada Pina colada. They're so good. Enjoy the rest of your Easter holidays if you have any left. If you have kids, stay strong. And I'll see you next week for another true crime story. Lots of love. Miss you all. Love you, miss you, really wanna kiss you. What is that? Okay. Love you. Bye.